Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
On air? On air? Bien. First for our French, the French people, c'est un plaisir et un très grand honneur que de vous recevoir, Russell Banks. Vous êtes un des plus grands écrivains américains à cette table. Lire est un plaisir en direct. Alors Russell Banks, good evening.
Good evening.
And welcome in reading is a pleasure.
Thank
La
you.
Réserve, The Reserve. La Réserve, it's the French title of your 15th novel,
I'm afraid.
already published in French by Actes Sud. A beautiful story between a publisher and you.
It is, yes,
Yes.
yes. Now, what, 20 years I think we've been together, yeah.
And Hubert Nissen is Belgian. Did
That's
you know
right.
that?
Yes,
Yeah?
of course, yes, no, I know that very well.
The first sentence of the novel is from Charles Baudelaire.
Uh-huh.
Do you know that Baudelaire translated Edgar Allan Poe in French?
Yes,
Yes.
of course, yes, I know.
No-
That's one reason why Edgar Allan Poe is so popular in France. He had a great translator.
Yes. No one but him should have do it
I think that's
so well.
right, yeah.
I'm Beautiful, Home Mortals. You are talking about Vanessa Cole,
Yes,
no doubt.
yeah.
One of the main characters of this beautiful novel, thrilling story. She's the daughter of a rich doctor, Carter Cole. We are in 1936, so it's about love, it's about art,
Yes.
it's about the Nazis, about the civilian war in Spain, and about father and daughter.
Yes,
Can I
very
ask
much.
you the pitch of the novel of The Reserve?
Well, it's a story also about class, which you did
Yes,
not add to
yes.
that list of things. But
Even most of all.
maybe a best way to begin to enter the novel is to understand it as a kind of noir, an homage à noir, a wilderness noir, however, because of many of the conventions of the noir. When it opens, we see immediately a femme fatale, as Vanessa Cole, is a dark and beautiful and glamorous woman, but also mysterious, and it's not clear what her needs are, but she seems to have very powerful needs. And then we meet a man, Jordan Groves, an artist, an adventurer, a philanderer.
Painter.
And instead of riding in on a white horse, he flies in on his airplane into the wilderness where the Cole family has their camp. And the beginning of the novel is the meeting of these two. And it's from there, I think, that it spins out of control. Their lives, the lives of the individuals start to spin out of control. And in particular, four characters. Vanessa Cole, the femme fatale, Jordan Groves, the man who likes to solve other people's problems, whether it's the poor, he's a leftist artist, so he wants to solve the problems of the poor, or beautiful women like Vanessa Cole. And then his wife, Alicia, who is a somber and sweet and lonely woman
Coming from Europe.
coming from Europe, placed in his home in the wilderness, taking care of Jordan Grove's children and being without him for long periods of time while he travels. And then there is Hubert Saint-Germain, who is the guide, the woodsman, and in many ways a kind of throwback to James Fenimore Cooper, a character of the forest that in American imagination is a very powerful figure, the man of few words. We see him in Clint Eastwood characters in westerns, and we see him in the early American literature as well.
Where did you find his name? Hubert
Hubert
Saint-Germain.
on a gravestone, I'll tell you.
Really?
Yeah. Well, where the Adirondacks is located is near the border of Quebec. It's that northeastern corner of New York State where Quebec and New York State and Vermont come together, and many of the people there, especially the poor, are immigrated in from French Canada, and so they have French names.
Right.
But they're anglicized French names. They would not say Hubert Saint-Germain. They would say Hubert Saint-Germain.
So how did you get the idea of putting your characters in 1936, creating such a special character like Jordan Groves, an artist who liked women but loved his wife and his sons?
It's an old story, yeah.
And also talking about poverty in Rangeview.
Right. I think I wanted to go to that particular period for a number of reasons, but one of them was the parallels between the Great Depression years and the present in the United States, where the gap between the rich and the poor has grown so great. Today in the United States, the gap between the rich and the poor has not been so great since 1936. And I began to think about that. The other thing is that it's a period in American history that's fading very rapidly from lived memory. My mother and father, who were born in 1914, grew up in the 1930s, and now my mother is 94 years old. And so that generation is fading fast, and lived memory is something that a novelist can regather. A novelist can tell us again and newly what it is like to live in a particular time, just as we're forgetting what it was like to live in a particular time. So there were lots of different reasons for my interest in it.
That's why you also wrote about the Spanish Civil War and the Nazis.
And the rise of fascism in Europe and so on. Yeah, the historical changes that were occurring in that period that people were barely aware of. They were just beginning to glimpse, except for a few, what was happening. Is also similar to us today. There are historical changes occurring today that most of us don't really have a clear idea about. So sometimes you step back in time in order to see the present more clearly.
You really learned to fly to write this novel? Really?
Yeah.
Especially for
this novel, yeah. But maybe it was an excuse, so I write the novel so I could take some flying lessons, yeah.
I was very impressed by the scene with the Hindenburg, this huge Zeppelin.
It was the
biggest.
Is
it a symbol in your novel?
Yeah, I'm sure it's unavoidable. It's the largest airship ever built, ever. It was 1/6 of a mile long. It was as long as the Eiffel Tower is high. Of course, it famously exploded on May 7th, 1937. But I found it entered the novel really by accident. My researcher, I work with a woman who helps me research. I said, find out what happened in this region in the summer of 1936. And she says, because I want to know if anything like a forest fire or something that I would have to account for had occurred. She came back and said nothing, no big deal, nothing happened, except the Hindenburg was sighted flying down across this wilderness. And the image of the Hindenburg flying over that wilderness on its way to New Jersey, to its doom, entered the novel at that point because it was irresistible. And I could see a scene with the Hindenburg coming down and then that pilot in his little Waco biplane flying by it and seeing it and it being so enormous and his plane being so little and then coming all the way down to the end. Then he gets to the end and those giant fins on it and then the giant swastikas on the fins. And I thought that, so everything kind of came together with that image. Yeah.
After waving hello or goodbye to the people.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Really, really, really impressed. The poverty, with the poverty, it seems we are not so far from trailer park.
That's true.
No?
That's true. As Christ said, the poor, they are always with us, and indeed that's the case. But we aren't very far from the world of trailer park. Those were stories that I wrote in 78, 79, 80, and set in New Hampshire. And the world hasn't changed very much in those intervening years, almost 30 years now. I could have written Trailer Park today and it would still be as accurate, unfortunately.
I lived in a trailer park when I was in Stanford University during several months. Russell Banks, thank you very much for coming for The Reserve, La Réserve, qui est maintenant chez tous les libraires. Voilà, la caméra est là, parce que j'en vois une autre qui est là-bas, alors excusez-moi, je le montre à la caméra, il vient de sortir, il est tout frais, franchement, ruez-vous dessus, parce que je ne sais pas comment il fait, mais en tout cas on est captivé par la beauté et par son style. C'est le titre du nouveau livre de Russell Banks qui était avec nous, et c'était vraiment un très grand plaisir. Thank you for coming, Russell Banks.
Thank you also for having me, I've enjoyed it.
Can I ask you to sign my book?